Air Canada is under investigation by American aviation officials after a second close call at San Francisco's airport.
Air Canada 781, go around. Air Canada 781, tower.
Yeah, Air Canada 781 is going with the radio here.
That's pretty evident.
Controllers had to repeat themselves several times and even flash a light at the plane to alert the crew to go around. Air Canada says it did have clearance to land, but acknowledges the communication breakdown. To weigh in on this, let's bring in aviation expert Phyl Durdey. And Phil, thank you very much for being on the program. Let me ask you about your thoughts on this, on the fact that obviously there was a communication breakdown, may have been radio, but what did you think when you heard about this?
Well, good afternoon, Bev. Well, what I take from this is that obviously the Air Canada flight was cleared to land. So it's not uncommon for them to have no radio communication between the tower and the aircraft all the way until they touch down. And when at that point in time, that's when tower is going to switch them off onto ground. So if the tower had been calling them, telling them to go around, if Air Canada didn't hear anything, it wouldn't have been out of the normal in the cockpit.
So they used a red spotlight of some kind. Tell me about that kind of use in an emergency situation.
Okay, well, what we have several means of, if there is a communication failure between the aircraft and the tower, or aircraft and ground, we use a series of colored lights from the cockpit. It's a directional light. There's three colors. There's green, there's red, and there's white. So if the pilot needs to abort the takeoff or go around or on landing, then there'll be flashed a red light. And then if everything's good to go, there'll be flashed a green light. So it depends on the situation. Also, in the cockpit, the crew can tune in the transponder, and they can put a code out, which the air traffic control will see on their radar to tell them that they have a communications failure.
So in terms of the investigation, though, because they didn't, I mean, they landed anyway, so even with that red light, they landed. What are all the kinds of things that they'll be looking at?
Well, they're going to do a complete investigation. There'll be investigations on all sides of the border. FAA will be doing their own investigation. Air Canada and also Transportation Safety Board or Transport Canada will be investigating and seeing what's going on. They'll be interviewing the pilots. They'll listen to the air traffic control and looking at the transcripts. And hopefully they downloaded the cockpit voice recorder. That way it'll back them up to say that, hey, they did have a communications failure.
So let me ask you about this, because as we know, there was an incident a few months ago where a plane almost landed on a taxiway, mistaking it for a runway. So in terms of the optics and in terms of the FAA, Air Canada, and at this airport, how does it look?
Well, Bev, to tell you the truth, it was just a coincidence, a bad place, bad time for Air Canada. This could have happened to any airline. It just happened to be that it was Air Canada had this incident. But it's communication failures are not very common. So, you know, it doesn't shine bad on Air Canada. I don't think it was really their fault. There was no operational faults on Air Canada's part.
Okay, Phyl Durdey, thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me, Beth.